Today we keep the feast of Saint Mary the Virgin. We first heard of Mary in Luke's Gospel when the angel appeared to her with astounding news that she would conceive in a womb a baby to be named Jesus, and he be called the Son of the Most High. At this point in her life, she was betrothed to Joseph. We don't know what was Mary's age, but usually in that culture, when a young lady got to the age of about 12 to 13, she was betrothed to a man chosen by her father. And it was not a marriage. It was like an engagement. But once you were betrothed to the man, in a sense, you were legally the man's wife. The man was not legally your husband. And you were not allowed to skip out. The woman was not allowed to come out from the betrothal. But she's also given the news that Elizabeth, we don't know what was Elizabeth's age, but all we know is that she was well advanced in age and barren. But at this age, she too has become pregnant. And Mary is confused, I believe, and Gabriel says to her, "For with God, nothing shall be impossible. For with God, nothing shall be impossible." This statement does not mean that God will do anything or misuse his power. We have to see it within the context that God will use his power for good. God will use his power for good. And after these words, that Mary exclaims, "Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word." I think the story of Mary, as we keep this feast, speaks to all of us in about 3 ways. First, it invites us to put our trust in God. How shall this be? I have no husband. Let it be to me according to your word. We do not always understand how God operates in our lives. We do not understand everything that happens in our lives. Sometimes we are left in bewilderment when we go through certain experiences. But as Christians, we must live with the belief that God always does what is best for his sons and daughters. And nothing in life happens without the knowledge and the consent of God. So the story of Mary invites us to trust in God. In our present situation, not only in Barbados and the West Indies, but throughout the world, we are faced at this time with all kinds of challenges in our lives. The pandemic, natural disasters, climate change, all of these present challenges, and at times they can challenge our faith even in God. But at the same time, we are reminded today, as we follow the example of Mary, that we must have faith in God and take God's promises as true. And without faith in God in our lives, it is easy to lose hope and give up. Without faith in God, we can feel overwhelmed by life, going to depression, withdraw from the social life of our societies. Without faith in God, we might just give up on life. And the words that with God all things are possible invite us to live with hope. Mary said, "Let it be to me according to your word." In other words, Lord, I trust you. Do as you want to do with me. And this is the hope and the faith which we need at this time in our lives as we cope with the uncertainties that abound at the present. There were always challenges in our lives, but these days the challenges are more intense. There's a song which we all know. I don't know it that way, I will not sing it, but it says, God will make a way where there seems to be no way. God will make a way where there seems to be no way. But not only must we have hope and believe in God, that God will make a way, I think today also invites us to make a commitment that we will give encouragement to the many people who are crying out for help. There are so many people who are suffering mentally, physically, and spiritually. So many people outside the walls of this church are crying for help. If we stop, we will hear people saying, "Will someone help me? Will someone help me?" Paul tells us to bear one another's burden and so fulfill the law of Christ. And we are fulfilling the command to love God and to love your neighbor as yourselves when we come to the assistance of men and women, boys and girls who are crying out, "Will someone help me?" And without that help, we do not know what those persons will do to themselves. And the story of the Good Samaritan in St. Luke's Gospel is a classic example of what it means to give encouragement and come to the help of people who are in need. And if we fail as Christians and as citizens of our nation to give encouragement and support to people at this time, Many people are going to fall through the cracks and be lost. And so at this time, there's no room for selfishness or only looking after our own interests. We must all be willing to make sacrifices for the common good. I believe, and I don't think I'm wrong, but I believe that everybody at Mass this morning knows of at least one person who needs encouragement and a lifeline thrown to them. And this must be our response as we celebrate the life of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Every time we say the Lord's Prayer, these words are repeated. Thy will be done on earth. People of St. Mary and those who listen to me, God is in control. His power is not diminished by what is happening in the world. As that whole hymn says, he got the whole world in his hand. And so the feast of St. Mary the Virgin, it tells us that in the midst of all that we experience, in the midst of all that is happening in the world and in our families and in our social lives, that we must not lose hope. What seems impossible, God can change. What seems heavy, God can make it light. And what appears to be despair, God can fill it with hope. And I believe, like Mary, we can always be people of hope and joy. Your hope and my hope this morning is not based on the material things of life. If our hope is based on materialism, we will be disappointed. It is the peace of God dwelling in our hearts which makes us peaceful, loving, and joyful. And therefore, all of us who are present this morning, we need not be sad. Yes, we have that emotion. But because of God's peace in our lives, we can triumph all that we meet. We can remain steadfast and peaceful because of the joy that comes from Christ. And the joy that comes from God strengthens us in our weakness, gives light when life becomes dark, replaces despair with hope and death with life. The joyful man or woman, the joyful boy or girl, faces life with confidence and is not daunted by the spectacle of adversity. He or she can say or concur with Paul's words. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say, rejoice. I will not fool any of you that life is a paradise. I can stand here this morning and say that life is a paradise. I will not be truthful to you or to myself. Yes, it is rough mentally, physically, and spiritually. But do not lose your joy. Keep smiling. Keep smiling. Submit our lives to God. Let us respond to God's call and accomplish His will for you and for me in our lives. The feast of St. Mary the Virgin reminds all of us that with God, nothing in your life or in my life will ever be impossible for God to change. And therefore, the words of Paul, I know him whom I believe, and I am persuaded that he is able to keep me at the last day unto his own. So my dear friends, may God bless each and every one of us on this great feast of St. Mary. And remember this week and always that with God, all things are possible. Amen.